None of us are born into this life with self-awareness, but it is something that can be learned, developed, and improved. And I'm going to show you how, including practical examples and exercises. Research shows that over 90% of adults believe themselves to be self-aware, but when in fact that number is much closer to 10 to 15%. When we're not self-aware, it's easy to go through life blissfully unaware of the impact our actions are having on ourselves and on the people around us, and ending up wherever life takes us. That's great if you end up where you want to go, but not so great if you end up anywhere else, as most of us do at some point in our lives. And the key to this is self-awareness. Learning who we are gives us back control over ourselves, our experience, our lives, our future, and it's the very foundation of personal growth and success. I'm Nicola, and I've been developing my self-awareness for over 30 years, and that has allowed me to break free from the past and live a life that is much more intentional and fulfilling. So I'm going to give you 17 different activities that you can use to start improving your self-awareness immediately, plus one key mistake that you're going to want to avoid to not go off the rails as you build your self-awareness. So what is self-awareness? Self-awareness is our ability to see ourselves clearly, who we are, how we tick, where we fit into the world. It's also the ability to be aware of our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our beliefs, our reactions in the present moment as we go through life. And these activities I'm going to share with you are all essentially types of mirrors, ways to have yourself reflected back to you so you can understand yourself better. So go through these activities and find the ones that do that for you. The very first of these activities, and probably the most fundamental to all of these, without which the rest of these activities won't work as well, is to decide. To decide that having self-awareness is important. And I have a whole other video on why having self-awareness is so important, all the benefits it provides that you might want to watch after this one. But you want to decide that you want to know the truth of who you are and that nothing's going to stop you. To make a commitment to regularly practice techniques and activities and exercises that help you to enhance your self-awareness. You might decide to spend 5 minutes every day as you go to sleep practicing one of these activities in order to increase your self-awareness. So your task is to make that daily commitment to doing something that increases your self-awareness based on the activities I'm sharing with you today. The second activity, which is equally important as the first, if not more so, is to get curious, to get insatiably interested in who you are and what makes you tick. And you do this by asking lots of questions like, who am I? What do I believe in? What do I not believe in? What's important to me? What isn't important to me? What do I want? What do I expect? Where do I fit into life? And it's important as you do this that you're focusing on learning who you are. You don't already know who you are, because when you decide that you know who you are, it comes from the past. It's, well, this happened to me and therefore this is how I am. What we want to do is focus on the here and now, in the current moment. Who am I right now and going forward from this point? I remember deciding when I was about 9 or 10 to see everyone as inherently good. That even when people did bad things, it was because they were confused or having a bad day or off track or dealing with stuff, but that underneath all of that, there was a good person trying to come out. And I can see, looking over my life, how that belief has shaped who I am to this day. And so I'm learning who I am by looking at how that belief shapes me right here, right now. So your task is to start asking lots of questions. Get curious, get insatiably curious about who you are and what makes you tick. So as you start to ask yourself lots of questions, I want you to focus on the balance of why versus what questions. Both questions are really important. Why questions are focused on the past, where you come from. They tell you your motivations and what drives you to do what the things you do. Whereas what questions are more future focused. They're more solution oriented. So if you say something like, why am I sad? That's helping you understand where it's coming from. But then you want to shift to questions like, what can I do differently? How can I see this situation differently? What can I change about my beliefs or perspectives to feel better about this situation? So I want you, as you're asking these questions, to go through looking at that balance of what versus why. Your task is to see, am I asking enough what questions? Because the risk is you get caught up in the why questions, you get stuck in the why, digging into the motivations, and don't switch to the what questions, which help you to find solutions and be constructive and find ways to change and improve. And as you ask lots of questions and keep an eye on that balance of what versus why, you naturally move into the fourth activity, which is reflection. This is reflecting on what went well, what could have gone better, what might you do differently next time. And the idea with reflection is to notice patterns. What are the themes that you see keep coming up over and over in the things that are happening for you? But also it gives you an opportunity to celebrate your progress, to understand this is where I was and this is where I am now, and see how far I've come, see the improvements you have made so far, but also to switch to a future focus, to understand this is where I am and this is where I want to go. So all of this reflection helps with this understanding. And there are lots of ways you can do this. Some of the more common ones might include journaling, writing out your thoughts. You might do voice recordings on an app on your phone, or you might want to draw out what's going on for you. The point here is that we need to externalize in order to reflect. It's really helpful for us to externalize in some way what's running through our heads. For example, when I have something I can't decide, often what I'll do is I will sit down in the morning and I will write a question to myself around whatever's going on for me. And then I will just write. I'll just start writing. I have kind of a stream of consciousness going of the thoughts that are running through my head, the options that I have available to me, what I want to do, what I don't want to do. And that helps me to get clear on what's going on for me. So your task is to find a way to reflect on what's going on for you that helps to externalize and clarify the chaos that's going on in your mind. And I've got a guide with over 100 journaling prompts that you might find helpful as you go through that reflection process. And as you start reflecting on what's going on for you, you'll naturally move into the fifth activity, which is to observe your thoughts and feelings, to come into the present moment and notice what's going on for you right here, right now, which is mindfulness. We're developing mindfulness here. Now, this can come through activities like meditation. It can come through things like what I call constructive rumination, where you roll things around in your head and see what comes out, or simply from just observing, from stepping back and objectively noticing what's going on for you. I've been meditating sporadically for over 8 years, and even though that practice has been intermittent, it has still allowed me to develop a presence of mind that allows me to see what's going on for myself and observe myself so much more objectively. So your task is to find ways to be more mindful throughout your day, whether that is stopping for a minute and just focusing on the present moment, whatever that technique is. And I've got a guide that takes you step by step through 10 of the most popular meditation techniques that you might find helpful as you develop more ways to be mindful in your day. And to begin observing your thoughts and feelings, you're in a much better place for the next activity, which is to notice your triggers, to notice the things that trigger you and start to spot patterns, to look at situations where you are feeling triggered and ask things like, what just happened immediately before I felt triggered? Where was I when it happened? Who was involved? What events unfolded around that? When, what, why? All of these questions around your triggers help you to understand the situations where you are more likely to be triggered. I know from experience that I am very strongly triggered when people either ignore me when I'm talking to them or talk over me. And I also get really triggered by people wasting my time. So by understanding these triggers, I'm in a better place to manage them. So your task is to start noticing your triggers. When are you triggered? Start to observe those, whether that's writing them out or just remembering what happened. Start to find the patterns in your triggers. And as you observe yourself and start to notice the patterns in your triggers, you'll also be better placed to do activity 7, which is to notice your strengths and weaknesses. And these are the things that either you do really well or that you struggle with. So you can do this by looking back over your past. You can see the times when you thrived in a situation, when you did really well, when you succeeded effortlessly. And you can also see the times where you struggled, where you didn't know what you were doing, you're feeling frustrated or overwhelmed. And understanding these strengths and weaknesses can be really powerful. So you can make an inventory, you can write out a list from what you've seen, or you can ask other people to give you feedback on what they think your strengths and weaknesses are. I know for myself, my strengths are organizing things and information. I am great at technology, it just comes to me naturally. but I'm not so great at taking feedback. That's something I really struggle with. And I'm also really not great at being told what to do. Let's put it that way. I can be pretty stubborn sometimes and really dig my heels in. So knowing those things helps me manage those situations more effectively. So your task is to make an inventory of your strengths and weaknesses. Whatever way that you do it, make that list, understand what you're really good at, where you thrive and what you struggle with, and then pick one, whether it's a strength, one that you want to lean into, or it's a weakness, one that you'd like to improve and work on. Another really important activity to look at in this process of developing your self-awareness is to examine your beliefs. What do you believe? And as you look at those beliefs, to understand where they came from. Is this the belief that came from my own experience? It came from someone else's experience? Is it even my belief? Is it something that I want to continue believing, or do I want to change it or get rid of it? So the idea is to identify your beliefs and challenge them if necessary. I know that I have a belief that I'm not very good at mechanical things, but I also know that that belief comes from the fact that I married a mechanical engineer, and so he is naturally good at mechanical things. It's just easier for him, so a lot of the time I'll just defer to him and let him do things. And while that is great and it means I don't have to spend the effort doing those things, it doesn't necessarily follow that I'm not good at it. It's just that I haven't had the practice recently, or that I haven't made the effort to do it. So it's important for me to understand where that comes from, and helps me manage those situations where that belief comes up. So your task is to identify your beliefs. What are the beliefs that are driving your actions? What's underneath the choices you're making? And then examine those beliefs and decide whether you want to keep them, change them, or drop them entirely. Closely related to your beliefs in enhancing your self-awareness is to understand your values. What is important to you? And your life is a reflection of your values. So if you look around at your life, see the things that you spend time, energy, money on, these are the things that you value. These are the things that are important enough to you to invest those resources and time and effort into. And the things that aren't important to you, you neglect, you let go, and that's okay. The idea is to understand what your different values are, what is important and what is not important. I know that for me, family is really important, but also my personal freedom is really important. But on the other hand, I'm just not that interested in the latest fashion or in politics, and understanding my values helps me understand myself better. So your task is to write out your values. What is it, looking at your life, that appears that is most important to you? And by understanding your values, that informs the rest of your life and your self-awareness. Once you've done some of these activities around observing yourself and your strengths and weaknesses, your triggers, your beliefs and your values, you're in a really good position to do the activity of writing out your ideal day. This doesn't have to be a complicated or over-the-top exercise. This is simply a way for you to get clarity on what your ideal day would look like, all the details of what you want your life to look like. So you write out on your ideal day what would happen and what would not happen, what happens at each moment of the day, and what things are you not doing in your ideal day. It's not about trying to lock you into a particular day. It's trying to distill down for you what your ideal life looks like, because that ideal day gives you clarity on what's most important to you. For me, my ideal day would involve a very clear schedule where I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, whether that's gardening or cooking or reading or painting or creating something. Having the freedom in my day is a lot of what my ideal day looks like, but also creating at the same time. So your task is to write down your version of the ideal day. What, moment by moment, you might break it down into half hour, hour blocks, whatever makes sense to you. Break it down, write it as if it's something you're going to put into your schedule. Write down that ideal day and use that to get clarity around what you want your life to look like. A lot of the activities we've talked about up to this point are mental activities. They're intellectual exercises. But there's actually value also in going into our bodies. So we can use physical activities to develop our self-awareness. We can use things like yoga or gentle stretching or any kind of gentle movement like Tai Chi, walking. That physical movement provides us information that can help to build our self-awareness. So notice the sensations when you're doing these activities. Where is there tension? Is there discomfort? Are there areas that move better than others? Some areas that are tight, other areas that move more easily. I have a yoga practice that I do most days, and that is different most of the time. Each time I do it, I'll experience different things. Different parts of my body might be sore, there might be tension in different parts of my bodies, but all of that is information helping to build my self-awareness. So your task is to find some kind of gentle movement that you enjoy doing, and as you do it, to tune into those sensations, to get that information and that additional insight into what's going on for you. Another great way to get insights on who you are and why you are the way you are is through releasing activities, by which I mean modalities or techniques that help you to shift or release issues, blocks, trauma, that kind of thing. Because as you do these releasing activities, you'll often find that things will come up spontaneously. Memories, emotions, thoughts will just arise. And these can be valuable insights into what's going on for you internally. When I use EFT or meridian tapping, what I find often is that I will start with a particular setup phrase, and then as I tap through the different points, the words that I'm using will change without me really even thinking about it. They will evolve and different words will come out. And as those words come out, often they're closer to the issue that I'm trying to deal with. They often hit the nail on the head and can be really powerful. So I'm getting insights into who I am and what's going on for me simply by using these techniques. So your task is to explore a range of releasing techniques to help you find these insights and this self-awareness. And I've got a guide that lays out my favorite releasing techniques that might be a great place for you to start as you explore different techniques that help you to build your self-awareness. For as long as I can remember, I've been a fan of personality tests, and there's a heap of them out there, and they can tell you things about who you are and what categories you fit into. But it's really important as you use personality tests to understand that there'll always be generalizations. You are a unique human being, and no matter what buckets it puts you into, it doesn't mean that you're an exact fit to that. So just keep that in mind. Instead, see these as a tool, as a lens, a way to look at yourself. And you may, in fact, disagree with the results that they give you, and that's totally fine, because that disagreement still gives you information about who you are and who you know yourself to be. You can go with mainstream tests like the Myers-Briggs, the 16 types, the Hexaco, the Big Five. There's lots of mainstream personality tests that you can do and get insights about who you are and how you engage with the world. But I'm also a huge fan of alternative personality methods, usually based around your time of birth, things like astrology or human design or numerology, which is based around your name or your birth date, or things like I Ching. All of these are intended to give you information and insights into the potentials that you are brought into this world with. And all of these systems can be really valuable. Personally, I found astrology and human design really helpful. Understanding my north nodes and where I'm being called to, my direction. I found it really invaluable to look at human design as well, to look at how my potentials are playing out in the world and what I'm being called to do, and that I'm on the right path. And so that for me has been really useful. Even if it's not exactly spot on, it still gives me information that I can use to better understand what it is I'm trying to achieve in this life. So your task is to explore all these different tests, to find whether they're mainstream personality tests or things like astrology and human design, to explore all these modalities and these techniques that try to describe your personality and use them to get a better understanding of who you are. Closely related to personality tests are existing frameworks that try to describe what it means to be an effective, happy, thriving human being. There are plenty of these, things like the 12 areas of life, or PERMA, P-E-R-M-A, or you might have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or the 4 different areas of emotional intelligence. The point is, these are frameworks trying to describe what it means to be a human being and to exist. And the idea is that you can use these frameworks to look at the different aspects of life and then compare how you're doing in those different areas, to break down your life into different aspects and see, am I doing the way I would like to be in this area, or are there things that I want to improve? If we look at PERMA, for example, the P-E-R-M-A stands for positive emotions, engagements, relationships, meaning and accomplishment. So you can look at those 5 different areas and say, how am I doing in each of those? So your task is to explore these different frameworks, find the different frameworks that describe what it is to be human, and see how you're doing in those areas, and use that to build your self-awareness of how your life is going and whether it's unfolding the way that you want it to be. Moving even further outward from inside our brains and inside our internal experience into the outer world is the idea of role reversal. To find yourself in a challenging situation and to try switching roles, imagining what it would be like to be the other person in that situation, to put yourself in the other person's shoes, to think, how might this person be thinking and feeling right now? I have to constantly remind myself with my kids that they are different human beings. They have different personalities. They don't have my experiences. They have their own set of experiences. They are younger than me. They just have a completely different set of perspectives and experiences going into making up who they are. And trying to put myself in their shoes and understand how they might be experiencing me can be really valuable in helping me adjust my behaviours and my communication to make everything so much more effective. So your job is to do that when you find yourself in a challenging situation or conversation, is to try putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Try to imagine how might they be experiencing you, and what would that information or that insight change about how you're interacting, how you're communicating, how you're behaving towards them. Another activity that can be incredibly valuable in developing your self-awareness is asking for feedback. Now, I know this can also be really challenging, but it is incredibly valuable because we are so often blind to how other people perceive us. But it is also really important to understand that when we do receive feedback from others, it is coming through their filters, through their own experiences. So we need to take it with a grain of salt, to take the value that we can from it, but not to take it too personally. Now, there's a couple of different ways that we can do this. Firstly, we can just become highly attuned to how other people respond to us. We can pay attention to how they react to what we say and do. Now, we are still guessing and filling in the gaps. We don't actually know what's going on for them, but it's at least information about how they are responding to us, and we can make our best guesses. Or we can choose to have those difficult conversations. We can sit down in a safe space and ask for that feedback. And a great way to do this is using a technique called nonviolent communication. And I've got a step-by-step guide that you can download, but it's a way that helps you to communicate what's going on for you and what you're experiencing, but also to hear what other people are saying to you and take that on board effectively. Now, I did an exercise with my friends many years ago where I asked them to describe me in one word. And they came back with the most amazing things like strength and focus and passion and determination and love. And I just didn't know that that's how they saw me. That was incredibly moving for me to understand how my friends were experiencing me. So it can be a positive experience if we have the courage. So your task is to be brave and to ask for that feedback, whether it's asking for one word, whether it's saying to someone, how am I doing? Or whether it's getting more specific and saying, in this situation, can you tell me one thing I did well and one thing that I could have done better or that I could improve on for next time, and use that information to improve your self-awareness. Another great way to develop your self-awareness is to engage in therapies of any kind, whether that's conventional or alternative. The idea is that when you work with someone, you have the opportunity to have new experiences, to perhaps have spontaneous thoughts or memories come into your awareness that helps to improve your understanding of who you are, but also to have yourself reflected back to you by that person that you're working with, to have that external mirror, if you like, helping you see yourself more clearly. I've worked with many healers over the years, and in those experiences, I've had memories, I've had opportunities, I've had new experiences that expanded my horizons and helped me better understand who I am. So your task is to consider working with someone to see if that could help you to develop your self-awareness even further. It's really important as you do all of these activities that you stay open, that you explore, that you are curious, that you listen, that you pay attention, that you're willing to see things from new points of view. I find it utterly fascinating, the idea that the way that you see purple could be different from the way that I see purple. We might call it the same thing, but maybe what you see as purple, I would call orange. And the idea that our different points of view can add to our understanding of ourselves and the world is really powerful. But as you do this self-awareness activity, it's really important that you don't slip into self-consciousness. Self-awareness is not self-consciousness. Self-awareness is clarity about who we are, how we work, how we fit into the world. Self-consciousness is becoming overly focused on how others perceive us or even how we perceive ourselves, because we're coming at the view of ourselves with judgment. We might feel guilt over who we are, we might feel shame, We might be very self-conscious, literally, constantly worried about how other people are experiencing us or whether we're doing things right. But the idea with self-awareness is we come at it from a non-judgmental, objective perspective. It's information. We're not overthinking things. We're not getting stuck in our heads, analysing ourselves, and we're not rationalising. We're not using this information that we're learning about ourselves to rationalise our behaviours, to say, oh, well, this happened to me and I'm this way, therefore that's how I behave. We're trying with self-awareness to get information about who we are so we can make more intentional choices and create a future of our choosing. So now you have 17 different activities in your toolbox that you can use to enhance your self-awareness, that you can use to take control of your life and get your life going in the right direction. But if you need more motivation to understand why having self-awareness is so absolutely fundamental and important to your success, watch this video next. And I'll see you in the next one.